Welcome to Freethought Matters. I'm Annie Laurie Gaylor.
And I'm Dan Barker. Annie Laurie and I are co-presidents of the Freedom from Religion Foundation. We're a national association of more than 32,000 freethinkers. That means largely atheists and agnostics working diligently as a state church watchdog. Please join us or ask for information at ffrf.org or phone 1-800-335-4021. That's 1-800-335-4021.
Today our guest is Kevin Bolling, Executive Director of the Secular Student Alliance, whose purposes are to empower secular students to proudly express their identity, build welcoming communities, promote secular values, and set a course for lifelong activism.
Kevin has been executive director since 2017 with 20 years of nonprofit leadership experience, including 10 years of student association management. So Kevin Bolling, welcome to Freethought Matters.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with both of you.
Yes, now before we talk about the Secular Student Alliance and what it does, what is your background? What was your path to Freethought?
Sure. I grew up in a very Catholic family. And so I was altar boy for years.
Really?
I was. So yeah, I think through college was a time when a lot of people and a lot of students are examining sort of their backgrounds and their own belief systems. And so I think through that process for me was a time when I started to realize that perhaps the Catholic Church and its messages weren't, there was some doubt in my mind with that. And so I think just sort of, I had a slow sort of ongoing progression through my sort of leaving religion and sort of becoming an atheist, and so there wasn't a specific moment for me. It was just a nice gradual sort of progression. And said coming into this job with the Secular Student Alliance is when I sort of said I had to sit there and think about it. And realize, yep, I don't believe in God. I have values that I live my life by, and I like, a good separation of church and state.
So you were an altar boy. What comes to my mind is I hope the priests stuck to their jobs.
Right.
You didn't have any knowledge or experience or...
No, I didn't. I think I was very fortunate growing up in the church. So my family was all involved in the church and growing up, and so yeah, for me it was a very good experience as far as. Did
you actually believe and talk to God and stuff, or did you when you were little?
I didn't. And the funny thing is, my mother and I just recently had a conversation this summer while we were on family vacation, and she says, "Well, does God ever talk to you?" I was like, no, he doesn't.
Isn't there that famous saying that if you talk to God, that's one thing, but if you think God's talking to you, maybe you've got a real problem.
That's a neuroses. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and my husband's a psychologist, so I sort of looked at him and was like, I think there's a diagnosis for that.
So the Secular Student Alliance, you've been executive director since 2017.
Correct.
What is this SSA?
The Secular Student Alliance is really the only and group in the secular movement specifically geared towards students. So we have about 275 chapters right now, and we've seen a lot of nice growth. So the majority of our chapters are in colleges and universities. We do have a good handful in high schools, and we've seen some recent growth there. And probably in the next month, we'll have our first middle school chapter starting as well.
So by chapter, you mean like a student club on campus?
Exactly.
High school and college campuses.
Yes.
So what Secular Student Alliance does is offer support, resources for students?
We do, I think, in part, and depending on, clearly each one of our chapters or organizations differ, depending on where they are in the country, how prevalent religion is in that community. And so really our organizations are a little bit different based on what the needs are of the students in that particular area, in that particular school. But it's definitely providing support, providing community, a place where students can be with other people who think like they do, and it's a place for them to sort of develop their values and how they're going to live out their life. And a big part for us is really sort of living out your secular values and being a secular advocate. So clearly issues of separation in church are extremely important to our students, but we want them also to be involved with their community, and we want they're involved with debates on campus, interfaith, they're doing community service on their campus, they're holding debates. Dan has been to, I think, many of our schools and doing lectures and talks and those those sorts of things, debates as well. So there's a variety of program that takes place on the campus.
And isn't some of it also to be a safe harbor or to meet other like-minded students? There's a social aspect to it with a lot of the groups, correct?
Definitely. And so the students look at it as an outlet and a place to find community, to find other people, to find friends. And we also look for, I think, one of the things that makes us unique on a college campus is if there is a religious person who's having some doubts about their religion, there's very, very infrequently a place where one can talk about that. And our student organizations, I'm very pleased with, if they have someone of faith and comes and says, I really want to have this conversation about faith and, I'm having doubts. Our student organizations, and I've watched it happen, are fantastic with having that conversation and having a very respectful conversation. Whether that student goes back to their religion and still a believer or leaves, that's all good, but at least it's a safe place to have that conversation.
Now, I think a lot of viewers would be surprised to know just how many students these days are secular, and maybe you want to define some terms and give us some statistics.
Sure, and I think a lot of our recent information comes from the recent Pew study. And so about the average in the general population in the United States is about 1 in 4 people are non-religious. And
adults.
So adults. Well, that's the entire population. And so you're none, so those people who are identifying as non-religious. And so
None, N-O-N-E-S.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct. And typically about 13% of that population is more your sort of atheist, humanist, so more of the students we would typically work with on a regular basis. But we have in the college age population, the younger groups, it's about 1 in 3 now, and it's actually 39% of college age students and younger are non-religious. So we're definitely seeing an increased growth. It was about 10 years ago 1 in 5, currently 1 in 4 in the general population, and now we're moving to 1 in 3 and with students.
1 in 3 students has no religion. And then I think there was a recent study by Barna, which is a religious outfit, but very reputable, is showing that it was 21% of Gen Xers actually identify as atheists and agnostics.
Okay, so increasing.
Not just none or I don't have an affiliation. So that's a huge leap.
So that's more than Baptists, that's more than Jews, that's more than Jehovah's Witnesses. That's
more
a
than
huge
Catholics.
percentage of the student population.
The secular community, the non-religious community, is the fastest growing religion in the United States. And
Religious identification.
correctly. And that's what Pew calls it, a religion, yeah.
But of course, it's always been said that it's like herding cats to organize non-religious people, because there isn't a church you go to every week. There isn't that kind of infrastructure. And certainly it's been very lacking on college campuses until Secular Student Alliance started. But many of these students are just coming out of religion. They're not necessarily looking for a club to join. They don't realize there are clubs to join.
Yeah, and I think more and more we're finding it's more of a mix. So more and more students are growing up in non-religious families, and then coming in and participating in and getting involved in the Secular Student Alliance. But we do find a lot of students who are leaving their religion, who have been kicked out of their homes, who are also worried about coming out to their families because they may lose financial assistance for coming to college. We have students at religious colleges where if they identify as secular, can lose their scholarships. And so we have a variety of students who, different situations in life that make the Secular Student Alliance very important to them.
At that age, somebody coming out of the closet as an atheist or agnostic is really more akin to coming out of the closet as gay.
True.
They face many of the same challenges depending on their family situation.
I agree completely, yes.
So you don't have to herd the cats. If you put out some good food, the cats will all come. It's not like they're being herded. It's like, and I've noticed because over the years I've got to work with a lot of SSA groups all over the country, all over the world actually, all over the student groups all over the world, and it's fun. What happens there is really fun, and the students that are involved are like, this is cool. They have an Ask an Atheist booth, or they have a Freethought week, or they have a Darwin celebration. And you can tell they're not there because their church is making them do it.
No.
They're there because this is really a blast. They're just having a good time. and it attracts them. And what you guys offer to them really makes a big difference on campus.
I definitely think so. And yeah, part of this, there is the social aspect and the sort of being, living out your secular values and sort of an activism. We want them to have an impact on their campus and their community.
So I was wondering, are there some international groups as well, or is it all U.S.?
We do have some international groups. So it's a looser affiliation. So our main focus continues to be the U.S. And working with those students. But we do have groups that are affiliated with us.
When did it start? When did SSA start?
The organization was officially founded in 2000 in Columbus, Ohio, and there were some student groups that existed before that. Actually, in Minneapolis is the oldest group that we're aware of, which has been around for 22 years.
And we were
that.
working with them. What was it called? Not Cash.
Oh, they called it.
Yeah, Cash.
Yeah.
We worked with them from the very beginning.
Oh, good.
Yes.
And they got funding from the university's student fees, right? Some of the groups do that. So
Many of the groups do, yes.
And August Brunsman was the original founder.
He was, yes.
And so now what are some of the new campaigns for Secular Student Alliance?
Sure, and we've had some great growth in coming out of the last academic year, and this summer we've been on a lot of projects sort of coming into the new academic year. And so clearly one thing we're working with 4 other organizations in the secular community to get out to encourage secular voting. And so we're doing a big push in the school year of getting students registered to vote, about doing voter registration on campuses with our students, and then clearly encouraging them to vote. And this will be an ongoing program. So in 2018 will be the start of that, and helping us refine and build the infrastructure. And we'll continue moving this along up until 2000 with the presidential election coming up, but continue it past then as well.
And of course that's a big job because every state has different laws, and there are so many laws that have been passed to make it much more difficult for students specifically, explicitly to
Correct.
vote. They're targeted. Well, good for you. I'm very glad that Secular Student Alliance
we know
is
that
doing
students tend to vote less than the general population. Just think what would happen to this country if young people actually went to the polls. Think what a difference that would make.
Definitely, that's our role as far as getting the students registered to vote, getting them information about how to do that on their campus, whether it's absentee or places on their campus to vote, and then just encouraging them to vote. And so that's the larger project of what we're involved with.
Well, we're speaking with Kevin Bolling from Secular Student Alliance. We're going to have a little break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the new outreach that Secular Student Alliance is doing on historically Black campuses.
Hi, I'm Ron Reagan, an unabashed atheist, and I'm alarmed by the intrusions of religion into our secular government. That's why I'm asking you to support the Freedom from Religion Foundation, the nation's largest and most effective association of atheists and agnostics, working to keep state and church separate, just like our founding fathers intended. Please support the Freedom from Religion Foundation. Ron Reagan, lifelong atheist, not afraid of burning in hell.
I'm Charlotte, and I'm an out-of-the-closet atheist. I've always been intrigued by religion, and when I was younger, I desperately wanted to be religious, to be more accepted by my family, who was in majority Catholic. My parents didn't raise me religious. I was never baptized. I never took communion. Well, once I took communion, it was a pretty bad idea. I don't think it was worth a church full of angry elderly who glared at me as I waved the communion wafer back and forth, asking my grandma what should be done with it. Also, the wine was pretty gross. From this experience and countless others, I came to 3 conclusions that sort of dictate how I live my secular life. One is that I find people of faith to be more exclusionary and less accepting. 2 is that I would rather work to please the people around me who I care about than someone who, to my knowledge, doesn't exist. And 3, that I would rather help people than pray for them.
Freethought Matters is back. I'm Annie Laurie Gaylor.
And I'm Dan Barker, and we're talking with Kevin Bolling, Executive Director of the Secular Student Alliance, which helps non-believing atheists, agnostics, what else do they call themselves? Secular humanist students.
Yes.
To find a place on campus. What if there's a group of students that want to start one of these club or what do you call them, chapters?
Chapters.
What do they have to do, and what do you do? Do you send them materials to help them get started?
Sure. Yeah, and we've been doing a lot of outreach, and it's very easy for a student who's interested in starting a group. So one, they have to meet some requirements on their campus, and those vary a little bit different depending on what the campus is. We actually have staff who helps them sort of navigate that process, so find out what those rules are and helps them through that process. And then for us, we have a few minor things. We want them to have an online presence. We help them set up an email so they're not using their personal information out there in the public. So we have some administrative things that we do in the background to assist them as well. But we actually now have a starter pack. So it's sort of like a kit in a box that we actually mail to the students, and it's sign-up list and publicity, tabling supplies, chalk, everything that they need to sort of start their group, sample constitutions, those sorts of things, and then to get the word out about the organization, increase the awareness, and then really helping them have their sort of first meeting and sort of kick off the process on their campus.
A lot of them invite us to some events on campus. You help students how to run an event and how to advertise and all that kind of thing?
We do. We have webinars for the students that deal with everything from publicity, social media, outreach, how to run a meeting, how to plan an event, transitions. So we try to cover a wide variety of sort of leadership development for our students.
Transition is a big deal on a college campus.
It is a big.
You can lose the chapter once the founder of that club goes on.
Yeah, and we realized that for us, we've started digging through our data. We realized that the first year and the third year are extremely important. So the first year, we can work with a student and get a student organization started in about a week. And we know after that first year is really putting some resources in to making sure they're up and strong and an active organization on their campus. And typically around year 3 is when we hit the first leadership transition. And so we now track that in our system. So we know that we're helping them identify who the new leaders are, working at a transitional period with them, so that we can be much more successful in the past. And we know if we can get them past year 1, we know that there's a really good likelihood that they'll be there until year 3. If we get them past year 3, there's a really good likelihood that they'll be there to year 10. So those are some key infrastructure things for us.
I remember when I went to Arlington, Texas to one of the SSA groups, and the president there, Becky was her name, she was very organized with a clipboard and everything and pick up at the airport and do the tabling. And SSA was telling her, you need to delegate. You can't, she said, but I want it done right. I have to do it right. And you were telling her, you need to delegate to some of the younger students because when you graduate, they need to have the experience to come up. And she said, that's hard for me to do, but okay, I'm going to do that.
So I think that speaking of outreach, this new outreach to historically black colleges is very important.
Yes, and I think there's a number of organizations in this community have done a little bit of outreach, and for us, we recognize, and I think working with Debbie Goddard at CFI and with Mandisa with Black Nonbelievers, Sikivu in Los Angeles. Yes, so we know that in typically historically communities of color, there tends to be a stronger sense of religion. So we know that those communities really need some extra help, for us. And so we're doing some intentional outreach. We've been sort of working with our partners in developing a plan, and we're looking at actually going on 2 campuses, historically black universities this year, doing a program that talks sort of about the hip hop and its effects on religion and how that works, and having one of our campus organizers there to help identify students who would be interested in starting an organization. So we're going to use that as a bit of a test model, and hopefully this spring roll out some additional programs at other campuses.
Are there any Secular Student Alliance clubs currently at historically black universities?
There aren't currently. We have had a chapter at Howard University. But we've actually been doing some outreach on social media, and we do have 2 students from historically black universities who are interested in starting chapters now. So we're definitely making some progress in that way, but we understand for that community, it's a much bigger deal to sort of be non-religious in that sort of environment.
But a lot of the Black Lives Matters founders are not religious. There is a new generation, and among African Americans, the numbers are almost as high as among white Americans, those who reject religion. So it seems like the time would be very ripe to recruit and offer services for historically Black universities. And doesn't SSA also have now an essay, is it a scholarship program or essay competition?
We do. Every year we have our scholarships. And so we provide a series of scholarships just for secular student activists. And then we also work with several other organizations to help them facilitate sort of specific scholarships on their behalf. So we work with a number of organizations to do that.
And well, of course, the Freedom from Religion Foundation has had essay competitions since the early 70s, and we now have 4, one for college-bound high school grads, one for ongoing college, one that's dedicated just to students of color. They're all open to everybody except this one, which rotates between high school and college. And then we now have a grad, and we have also student scholarship that we give for activists. So it's very important to do this because there are so many rewards if you're a non-religious, or if you're a religious student.
Right.
There's such infrastructure. And speaking of that, also on campuses, we have Christian Fellowship for athletes, all of these evangelists. There are churches on campus that minister constantly to students and try to recruit them. So Secular Student Alliance is really the only game in town.
It is. And so typically on a college campus, there can be up to 250 religious organizations and one Secular Student Alliance. So
we only need one. You know, if you have the reason and kindness, what else do you need, right?
It's true. But there is a lot that we sort of face on within the college, environment. And so you sort of mentioned some of the larger. So if you look at Hillel and Newman and Crew, and there's another one that's the 4 largest
InterVarsity and
InterVarsity.
Yeah.
You look at the 4 largest campus ministries. Their annual budget combined is $1 billion with a B.
Wow.
So you talk about that sort of money, and yes, they have faculty, they have staff on those campuses, they have facilities and buildings.
Yeah, physical buildings.
Exactly.
Sometimes, unfortunately, managing to get student segregated fee money, which is a big issue for me, for state church separation. But yeah, they have such money, such infrastructure, and they get all that blind obedience, automatic deference. So they're really very important that there should be an alternative for the student who thinks for him or herself.
Definitely. I think one of the interesting things that's happening on college campuses right now is 12 of the sort of very conservative Christian ministries on campuses realized that there was a decrease in the number of students that were participating. And by their own study, so they realized that a student coming from high school coming into college in their first year in college, that 70% of those students leave the religion. Mm-hmm. And I think what they mean by that is stop going to their church. Mm-hmm. So they're alarmed. And they have dumped millions of dollars, literally, into Campus Link, which helps identify students as they're leaving their high school. They track them to their college, and then provide all sorts of resources to them during that time. Connections on where things are, and here's how to get, here's how to find your religion on the campus, and those sort of things. And they have teams that come out the first 72 hours that the student's on campus. So that's not when classes start. That's when they arrive on campus. And they literally will pick them up and take them to one of those facilities that are around the campus. And help. One is starting to help build that community, which we think is a good thing. But unfortunately, it's based on the religion.
Yeah, there's a hidden agenda there. And of course, a student who's away from home for the first time, especially on a huge campus, can feel very alone or overwhelmed. And so that's when religion kind of pushes through to when they're vulnerable.
True, and that's our students on the campus, when they have the tabling at the beginning of the school year and the involvement fairs, they're there. We provide them with a lot of information, supplies, and fun stuff that they can help pass out to students. We provide banners and those sorts of things, flyers, so that they're able to make their presence known. And so we've, every year we see an increased number of students who are coming up to the table and go, "Oh, I need to be a part of this." So we're finding that definitely happening more and more.
Speaking of money, students are poor usually. They're in debt. So How is your group funded? I mean, do students pay a fee to join, or they just get to join?
We provide free membership to all students, and so specifically because of that reason, we understand that students don't have a lot of disposable income. And so I think we're one of something that makes us slightly unique in the secular community is our membership isn't who funds us. So we fortunately have a number of individual donors and foundations within the secular community that help fund what we do, and we actually have adults, people not in school, we'll say, who become members of SSA, and that allows us to provide those free memberships for students and all the services that we provide for students as well.
Secular Student Alliance is a 501c3 nonprofit, so people can go to your website
Correct.
if they wanted to donate and help the next generation. I mean, this is one of the most important things that the Freethought movement can do is nurture the next generation of freethinkers.
Yeah. And we look at, our members currently right now are your future members in, FFRF and the other secular organizations.
Or future staff. We actually have staff here at FFRF who were with SSA groups at college. So.
Yeah, even one of our current camera crew started a group at UW Whitewater, University of Wisconsin Whitewater. Yeah. So, and we work with AHA, Atheist Humanist Agnostics on the University of Wisconsin Madison campus. We usually help fund the donuts for the welcoming table.
Fantastic.
So we'd love to do that.
They're a very successful group, and they learned how to tap into those segregated fees to get funding, just like the Catholics get. Why shouldn't the atheists and agnostics have the same advantages?
Oh no, definitely. And we actually we had one student who did a whole presentation on how to get money from the Student Activities Office and your student government on campus at our annual conference.
Because many of them don't know that. They think they just have to pass the hat to start a group. They don't know that there's some finances available.
Yeah, some of our students have dues. More and more of our students are understanding the way that and we try to help them with that information of how the university provides funding. And then we also have a speakers bureau, which Dan is also on. So we work
and Annie
with.
Laurie is also.
That's true. Yes.
Well, many individuals.
Yes, and who are providing their services at free or reduced rates for our student chapters. And then we also help with grants for that, and we also do grants for them to have programs on their campus.
Well, thank you so much, Kevin Bolling, for joining us to talk about the Secular Student Alliance. You can go to what website?
SecularStudents.org.
To find out more and to support SSA. I'm Annie Laurie Gaylor.
And I'm Dan Barker, and thank you for watching Free Thought Matters.
Because free thought matters.